Parliament is calling for the immediate resolution of the dispute. For more on this, let me take you live now to Cape Town. Chairperson of the Home Affairs Portfolio Committee, Advocate Bongani Bongo. Good evening to you and welcome. Mr. Bongo, you say this: we would like to urge refugees to comply with the laws of the country and with the bylaws of the city of Cape Town. If you've been following this, and I know you have, patently that is not happening. How would you enforce those bylaws?
Thank you. Good evening to you and your listeners. As the Portfolio Committee, we have taken with keen interest the developments that are taking place in the city of Cape Town. We have identified the stakeholders that are involved to be the municipality and the United Nations Commissioner on Refugees and the department. To this end, we have called upon these refugees, because after a thorough assessment of these refugees, some of whom are not necessarily refugees, but they're just economic migrants that are in the country, what we have called on the municipality to do is that they must implement the court order which was issued 2 weeks ago, because it spells out what the municipality must do. But in the same vein, we are saying to the refugees, they don't have any right whatsoever, whatever grievance they have with the municipality, to fight with the law enforcement agencies of this country.
Right. Mr. Bongo, you're well aware, though, that they have been trying to do exactly that for the past 2 weeks, and they have been unsuccessful. Again, my question to you is, how do you see the authorities in Cape Town adopting a different approach, a different strategy? What do they need to do?
What they need to do, because we're in consultation with the United Nations Commissioner on Refugees, what they need to do now is to decide whether to integrate back to the communities, or they decide to go back home, because the issue of going to Canada, then United Nations says it's not going to happen. So we've got to now assist them in terms of integrating to communities those that are refugees, because they are asylum seekers in South Africa.
Fair enough. So what does assistance,
economic migrants,
what does assistance in integration mean, given that that has been put to them and they are simply refusing to do that? Many of them say they are too scared to be integrated into the community in Cape Town. What would you do differently?
What we have requested that must happen is that the municipality, because we're busy with an assessment of who are those that are asylum seekers and who are those that are economic migrants. So what we want to do different now is that the municipality must implement the court order which says that we must get them temporary accommodation so that we finalize the assessment. But at the end, we will be left with no option to request the department and the government of South Africa as Parliament that they must be taken back home. If they can't be integrated with our communities, we'll be left with no option, because Canada has written to us saying that they are not going to accept these refugees. So if they don't see South Africa as a home, they will be forced to go back to their respective homes.
All right. This is very important, Mr. Bongo. So you're suggesting on record tonight that if they're unable to be integrated, they need to be taken back home. In other words, if I'm hearing you correctly, they would then need to be forcibly deported. Is that what you're saying?
That is what will have to happen, because they don't want to leave. They are saying they don't want South Africa. They want Canada. And the decision to take them to Canada is not the decision of the South African government. That is the decision of the receiving country, which is Canada. And Canada has refused. Then we'll be left with no option but to say that they must go back to their respective homes where they come from, because in Cape Town now, in the CBD, the business is not progressing well. They've stagnated everything. We need to adhere to the bylaws of the city and adhere to the laws of this country.
Is government now giving, government, Mr. Bongo, giving the city of Cape Town a timeline in order to enforce those bylaws before they are deported?
The city of Cape Town will have to act in terms of the court order that was issued by the judge. But local government, as you know, is another sphere of government. They've got to take decisions on their own. But as as Parliament, we had requested the department to get in, as the Department of Home Affairs, to get in, separate those that are refugees in terms of asylum seeking from those that are economic migrants, so that we can be able to take decisive decisions. But from where I'm sitting, the decisive decision will be, among others, to consider that they must be taken back home.
I know that you're not part of the executive, but is it your belief that government, Mr. Bongo, is now becoming exasperated with the situation, that it is now time to up the ante?
It is now a prime time that we deal with this matter decisively as government, because we are not only dealing with it on our own accord, we are in constant conversation with the United Nations Commissioner on Refugees on what must be the way forward. So we as Parliament, we are now saying there must be a decisive step, because the business has come to a standstill in the CBD in Cape Town, and that situation is unattainable. So the meeting that we are talking about, that government is busy with now, it is to find those solutions so that they're able to respond back to Parliament as to what is the roadmap towards ensuring that we put this thing to rest.
Thank you for joining us. Chairperson of the Home Affairs Portfolio Committee, Bongani Bongo in Cape Town.